Sometimes all you want is warm comfort food from Grandma's kitchen, and I've got that today. I've got Grandma's recipe for old-fashioned stuffed cabbage rolls. This is not my grandmother's recipe, but my boss's great-grandmother's recipe, and it was translated into English like 40, 50 years ago. So you know this is the real thing, okay? What I love is that the ingredients are very few and very simple. There is one little secret ingredient she adds that we'll have to talk about later. So you want to start with a head of cabbage I've washed, and you want to loosen up all the outer leaves. You want the biggest leaves so that they roll easily. So I like to just kind of cut them off the core at the bottom and then kind of gently peel it away. And you'll want about 8 to 10 cabbage leaves. I'll save the inside and usually make something like coleslaw. It's okay if they tear a little bit. It'll be fine. You also need to get your rice cooking. Adding in, I like a little butter and salt in mine. Add in your rice. Once that comes back up to a boil, I'll reduce the heat, cover it, and cook it until all that liquid's absorbed. All right, then in a separate skillet, like a deep, wide skillet, this is also what I'm going to cook my cabbage rolls in after I roll them. I'm gonna bring this water up to a simmer and then kind of steam my cabbage leaves to make them soft and pliable. All right, then you wanna cut out this like really tough part of the core that's gonna help it to roll easier. So you can just take your knife and just kind of cut a little triangle. And then after you steam it, it'll be a lot easier to roll. Okay, so just kind of drop your leaves in, let them go for a couple minutes. A lot of different cultures have different ways to make the same dish just by switching out some of the flavors. This version is from my boss's great-grandmother who was from Ukraine. So this is more of the Ukrainian and Polish style, but the gist of all of them is the same. It is beef and rice rolled up in cabbage and cooked in a tomato-y liquid. Just cooking them until they're just pliable, and then it really sets this really bright green color. So you can see how they went from just a dull green to this really vivid green. That's what we like. Okay, rice done, cabbage ready. Now we make our filling. This facial wouldn't smell as good as the pasta one. Okay, for the filling, super simple. Now, in the grandmother's recipe, there is not onion, but I really want to put onion in here, so I'm going to. Everything else, I promise I'm going to follow correctly. So I'm going to finely chop it and then just mix it in with the ground beef. Okay, into the bowl, onion. Okay, and then ground beef. I'm using just ground sirloin, a little bit leaner. Really, any ground beef will work. Salt and pepper. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. A secret ingredient here, little of this. This is just MSG. MSG has kind of gotten a bad rep in the past, but look, it's a naturally occurring substance. It really has less sodium than salt does, and its whole purpose is just to like boost things, like wake it up. All right, and then my rice. I'm just gonna let it cool off a little bit before I add it in, just so it doesn't automatically cook that ground beef. The other secret ingredient going into this recipe, just condensed tomato soup. I mean, this is old school. This lets you know that this recipe is vintage. All right, and then I'm gonna add in a beaten egg and our rice. The egg is gonna hold everything together. Also, when I've done cabbage rolls, we just put the rice in raw and it absorbs, you know, as it cooks, but don't mess with Grandma's recipe. Now we roll. All right, so place your filling in. It's all about just tucking in 2 of the sides and then rolling up. You just want it to be sealed. And then we're gonna cook these packages in our tomato soup. We are cooking these on the stove. However, just a little secret. You could do this in the oven or in a crock pot, just if you wanna jazz things up. Classically, over the stove. So we're gonna take the rest of the tomato soup, add it into the pot. I'm gonna add a little bit of water, also not in the recipe, but we can't waste that. As these cook, they are going to leach out a little more liquid in there, so it will get a little bit thinner. Plus, that beefy flavor will also translate into the tomato mixture. I'm going to add a little more pepper, because I like it. Kinda wanna add a garlic, but I won't. Okay, and then I'm just gonna place my rolls in. I made more than the recipe called for because, I don't know, it's just how I do. Pack them in, they're gonna cook down. It's gonna be delicious. Okay, this goes onto the stove. I'm gonna bring it to a simmer and cook them covered. It's gonna take a while. You wanna cook it kind of on a medium low. You just want them to like almost poach in there. We're gonna cover these and simmer them for about 45 minutes to an hour, or just whenever that meat is fully cooked through and that cabbage is super tender. Grandma's recipe says actually 2 hours. Not sure it's gonna take that long, but we'll see. About every 20 minutes or so, you wanna baste the cabbage with that tomato sauce. It's smelling so good. It's time to eat. Yum. Oh. What I love about this dinner is it's got your meat, your starch, your veggie all in one dish. I don't feel the need to make any more sides to go with it. You can if you want. So to plate it up, all right, then I like lots of that tomato sauce on top. And then I am just gonna add a little bit of fresh parsley. This is gonna be so delicious. Like just what you want. Comfort food. Oh my gosh, so tender. That just cut through like butter. You might not think cabbage and beef is glamorous, but to me, this is like perfection. Let's see how Grandma did. It's dishes like these that really make you feel like you just got a big, warm hug. It's just so good. Simple things are often the very best. I'm impressed with the tomato soup in there. It does lend a sweetness, but it doesn't taste like the tomato soup that you know from that can. It's like mixed with all the other flavors that cooked in it. It's just a whole new experience. This should be your dinner tonight. Just saying.